Ask any police officer what their least favorite holiday is, and you'd be surprised how many of them will tell you Halloween. Between breaking up parties from noise violations to fake reports of violence and break-ins, most senior officers take this day off. Like my dad and older brother, I joined the police department in a fairly large city in the southeast part of the United States. I was a year and a half into my career, the first 10 months spent at a local jail. For the most part, the job wasn't so bad, if you could get past the weird hours. I was happy to be promoted to traffic and responding to domestic calls, so I didn't really mind working on Halloween. I was working a 12-hour shift, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. that day, and the first part of the day was pretty boring. I pulled a few people for speeding and responded to some calls for noise complaints from parties. I had a feeling this Halloween was going to be particularly busy, considering it fell on a Saturday. Now, my city is separated into multiple areas. The neighborhoods close to the beach are fairly crime-free, except for a few fights and drunk driving down by the boardwalk. I was on my way to the rougher part of the city when a call came over the radio, saying that there was reports of obedience, decorations, and possibly vandalism. Surprisingly, the reports came from a fairly affluent neighborhood close to the beach. Assuming it was probably some teenagers up to no good, I responded, saying I could be there in about 10 minutes. Pulling into the neighborhood, I was reminded just how wealthy some of the people were in this town. 3-story mansions lined the streets, with smaller ranch-style houses built long before peppered into the mix. Pulling up to the address reported to me, I noticed a group of 5 to 6 people standing in the driveway. The house was situated on the corner of 2 intersecting streets, easily allowing you to see into the backyard above the short fence lining the property. Approaching them, they all seemed freaked out, as if they had actually seen a ghost. A man in his mid-30s with his son said somebody had made a very realistic dummy and hung it from a tree in the back. He explained that he knew the couple who lived there, describing them as older and very unlikely to have done such a thing. It also appeared as if the couple wasn't home or had gone to bed early, since no porch lights or house lights were on. I made my way into the backyard, praying it wasn't where my mind was going. As I approached the decoration, my heart sank and I felt my legs buckling underneath me as I shined my flashlight onto the lifeless corpse of a man. His skin looked gray and cold, his eyes red and bulging from their sockets, and you could even notice the faint smell of decaying flesh. I immediately called for backup and set up a perimeter. Once help arrived, we had probable cause to enter and search the house. My biggest concern was if the wife was hurt or even completely unaware that her husband had hung himself out back. Some of the neighbors had told us that her mental state had declined over the years, so making sure she was okay was our top priority. After several minutes of knocking and announcing ourselves, we kicked in the back door. We first noticed that all the lights were on, yet the blinds and curtains had all been closed, giving the appearance that the house was uninhabited from the outside. The 6 of us began going room to room when I heard my buddy yell, "Gun! I got a gun!" Entering the room, I saw him holding a 12-gauge pump shotgun. We ventured upstairs, eventually opening the only closed door. What we saw is something nobody could have ever prepared themselves to see. Laying propped up on the bed was the headless corpse of the hanging man's wife. Blood, brain matter, and skull fragments scattered the wall behind her. Flies had already gotten to the body, which told us she had been dead for quite some time. A few of the officers ran to the back door to vomit, while myself and the other officer just stood there, speechless. Once we got ourselves together, we began bagging evidence and let the crime scene investigators take it from there. It was apparent that this was a murder-suicide, but what nobody could understand is why. From the reports of about a dozen neighbors, the couple had lived in the home for decades and was well received by all the community. They even made it a habit to regularly hand out the best candy during Halloween, often giving king-size candy bars to the best-dressed trick-or-treaters. I ended my shift that night 2 hours later than I should have, making it one of the longest shifts to date. It was my first time seeing a dead body, other than at a funeral. The images of the couple stayed in my mind for months on end, and even today, 6 years later, I can never forget the sight of the man's eyes. It's safe to say every year in late October, I get an eerie, dreadful feeling in my stomach. To this day, nobody has been able to explain why the husband would have done something so atrocious. Many believe he had gotten set up in a breaking gone wrong, but ballistics and analytics are consistent with the department's theory. Needless to say, Halloween is most certainly my least favorite holiday. My birthday is October 21st. I'm also absolutely obsessed with horror and Halloween things. This was almost 11 years ago, and I've spent a lot of time trying to forget it, so it's foggy, but the details are close enough. So for every birthday, for as long as I can remember, I've done a Halloween theme. When I was younger, I'd have a sleepover party, and we would watch scary movies. For my 13th birthday, we of course did the same thing. We ended up watching a few movies that night, but the main one we were doing was The Course of Emily Rose. A quick detail, my aunt was living with us at the time. The entire night, she was saying some weird things. I don't even remember what, but things like, doing stuff like this is just asking for bad attention. But most of the night was uneventful. Around 1 a.m., we started the Exorcism movie. During a high-tension part, for those who haven't seen it, it would be the part where she leaves her dorm and looks outside. As she's walking through the hallway, my dog, who is in a different room, starts howling. He never in his life howled before or after that night. A little later on, my aunt came upstairs. She didn't say much, but stayed for a while. When it got closer to the end, another high-tension part, my aunt, without saying a word, jumps up, and in the exact second, her feet hit the ground. Our power went out, but only in the living room and my bedroom. This wasn't even too alarming because it did that pretty often, but not usually at night. I only know my bedroom went out because my alarm clock was messed up. My aunt flipped the breaker and everything was fine. We didn't finish the movie though. We put on SpongeBob and we all fell asleep. The next day, 2 of my friends left really early. We were gonna go to the lake, but they left before we really had a chance to talk about it. My best friend stayed all weekend. Nothing really happened, but the house felt heavy all day. About 3 weeks went by, and nothing happened. Eventually, though, I started having horrible dreams, especially about one thing. It was a woman, very tall in a semi-simple dress. I could see lines in the features, but it was a shadow, like a 3D type shadow. I would dream things like running through a forest or falling down a hill, and she would always be watching me. I wake up covered in scratches, but clearly self-inflicted scratches. They would be deeper every night. We tried everything, cutting my nails every night to as short as possible, taping gloves on my hands, mom sleeping with me, everything. Eventually, getting to the point where they were on my neck and the school was asking questions. We even had CPS come to our house and ask me if I was safe. My mom was with me, and we told them the truth about my dreams. They put me into therapy. This went on for about 8 months. My brother really had bad nightmares too, but nothing specific, but really often. Eventually, we upped and moved, like literally. I went to bed one night like normal, and when I woke up, my mom had all mine and my brother's stuff packed. We went to my grandma's after school, and we never went back to that house, and my mom moved in a few weeks later. It took about 2 months to get into a new house. The dreams instantly stopped, and the scratches cleared up within a few weeks, and I haven't had any issues since. Except, I have a horrible insomnia and anxiety that started around that time. We did have one more visit with CPS after moving, and I did a few more months of therapy. I think they all checked it up to extreme anxiety, except we were never able to find the cause. My husband and I recently moved to a new apartment that's just a few blocks away from that house. Within 3 weeks of moving in, I started scratching myself. Although I didn't dream about her at all, we were on a month-to-month lease, so we only spent 2 months there and then moved out. I did bring it up to my mom last week, and she told me that the reason she moved us to my grandma's house like she did was because she was sitting in the living room after she put us to sleep. She watched a tall, shadow-like woman walk through the hall, stop and look into my brother's room, then went into mine. My mom went after it, and when she got to my room, she heard, "You've already lost her." She turned on all the lights and started packing. It's kind of a boring ending, but I've been questioning it a lot lately. Could this have just been anxiety, or was it real? I've never experienced anything else. I would consider it supernatural, and I haven't celebrated my birthday since. The events happened in October of '03. I was 10 years old and in 6th grade. Where I'm from, the middle schools got out after the elementary schools and high schools. My friends and I knew that we would have to immediately start trick-or-treating if we wanted to get any candy. Remember, Halloween of '03 was on a Friday. This excited us. We could hit every house we wanted, and we didn't have to worry about school the next day. After school, our parents picked us up and drove us to our friend Alex's house. He lived on a road named South Hen Road. To the left of South Hen Road was an identical street named South Concord. At the end of one side of South Hen Road was a turn that brought you to South Concord. On the other side was just the main road. Alec lived closer to the main road, so our plan was to start at his house, go to the main road, then turn up and go down Concord. After that, we'd go back down to Hen Road and return to Alec's house. So we began trick-or-treating. There was about probably 12 of us, but the notable ones were myself, Alec, Nate, and James. We had been accruing a great deal of candy when we got to this fateful house. It wasn't unlike any other house. 2 stories, a garage, front lawn, and etc. However, there was a Michael Myers statue, or so I thought, in front of the lawn. We went up to the house, got candy, and then examined the statue. It was holding a knife and was hunched over. James decided it was a good idea to kick it in the shin. Suddenly, the statue jumped up and began holding its shin. We were frightened that the statue was actually a dude. "I'm gonna effing kill you," said the man. Obviously, plenty of people claimed to want to kill somebody and not really mean it. We just assumed that it was an idle threat and continued on our way. At like 8:30, it was pretty dark out. I lived up north at the time, and anyone who lives there can agree that it gets dark pretty quickly. Anyways, we were still collecting candy when Nate and I began discussing the science behind slasher films, like who gets offed first and whatnot. One of the people we were with, who was in the middle of the pack, dropped his bag, so we all stopped and waited. Now the person had to turn around in order to pick up his bag. When he lifted up his head, he began to squint, as if he was trying hard to see something. We all turned to see the man in the Michael Myers costume walking behind us. It was odd. No one else was with him. Hell, we were the only group on the road. He was still holding onto the knife. When he noticed we were looking at him, he quickened his pace. Being stupid preteens, we booked it. Looking over my shoulder, I realized he started running too. Fortunately for my slow self, he was a decent length behind us. Our luck even turned more in our favor when a minivan stopped at the end of Concord. It was one of the people I was with's mother. We all piled in and quickly told her somebody was chasing us. She drove us back to Alec's house. What makes this even worse is that Alec and Nate told me that the man was still roaming the streets after we had all left. I don't think I've ever felt so terrified. I honestly have never left the house on Halloween since. Now, whether or not the knife he had was real or not is irrelevant. It's one of those things that I had no intention of knowing, just in case it was real and all.